So unless you've been living under a rock, you will know the devastation that AI is bringing. Now, I've yet to hear of anybody other than the tech bros bigging up AI and singing its praises. Obviously, these tech bros, they're tech bros too, they're ahead of the game. But apart from these rich, stinky rich billionaires, right, and probably in their Epstein files their own selves too, apart from these guys, who's really what's the word? Who really loves the idea of AI coming to replace our jobs? Now the thing is, it started when AI came in. It first came in where you had the generative AI producing images like Mid-Journey, and you had to have a Discord account, blah blah blah. And then NFTs was coming out. No, was it NFTs around the same time? Anyway, but we all know they started off. Let me say that one again. So they started off these generative AI machines started off just ripping artists' work to train their AI models on. Now, at first, everyone thought, oh, nobody really knew about it and nobody really, frankly, cared. But as AI has dominated the space and as these billionaire companies has put literally billions into the development of AI, we see things happening like this, where thousands of jobs are being cut from Amazon, thousands of jobs being cut from all of these places, yeah? And you think to yourself, well, with all of these sad stories, like I was reading this story the other day, it says that the Hollywood jobs most at risk from AI. A new study finds that generative AI, artificial intelligence, poses a significant threat to workers in visual effects, another creative discipline, and other post-production work in particular. So you can have a read of that if you want, but they've done a study and found 300 leaders across the entertainment industry reported that 3/4 of those respondents said that AI tools supported the elimination, reduction, or consolidation of jobs. And they estimate that over the next 3 years, it's going to nearly affect 204,000 positions negatively, right? You're talking about sound engineers, voice actors, concept artists, employees in entry-level positions, according to the study. So this is going to really affect. You're talking about graduates here. They're the ones who are mostly going to be affected by the adoption of generative AI. So needless to say, as a creative, of course I'm biased. Of course I can't wait till the demise of AI. And sometimes you might think, well, what can you do, right? Little old you in the face of companies like Nvidia, companies like OpenAI. These guys have stupid, ridiculous amounts of money. They have a stupid, ridiculous amounts of power in that sense. What on earth can you do? However, you'd be surprised that the creative. Well, you'd be surprised what power you have, because I remember when you'd be surprised at the power you have. There is literally people just like creatives, just like you and I, who have decided that they're going to take at least some action, you know, and that action is reflected in Adobe stock price. Look at Adobe stock price. Let me just get it up for you here. Look at it. Look at this. Yeah. And let's go over 5 years. Look, it's been going down all since at least that's 2020, 2021. So just post-pandemic, that was when the economy experienced an upturn as people went on massive what they call employment boosts because they want to come out of the pandemic, right? So, and they've been going down. They did experience a little upturn, but then look, since then, they've been just trending all the way down. And I wonder why. So maybe their idea of adopting AI and their subscription model is not really working long term. And good, because there are many alternatives nowadays, again, created by people who had their finger on the pulse, who knew what artists want. Anyway, I'm ranting a bit again from the point. Why did I feel comfortable to go to uni, even though the outlook is not looking that bright? Why did I decide I'm going to not listen to all of that and just go anyway? And you might think, that was such a bad thing to do. Why did you do that? Just study for business, study to do law, study to do this, study to do all these other things, secure your future, blah, blah, make more money, blah, blah, blah. And the thing is, taking that approach, that still doesn't answer, that still doesn't really safeguard you from the possibility of your career being axed because of AI. Because we see there's many industries that are being affected from AI. It's not just the creative space. Like earlier I talked about Amazon cutting more than 10,000 jobs in their senior leadership levels. It wasn't just the creative space that's being affected by these job cuts. We see computer science. Computer science is now one of the sectors that are experiencing the most sort of job cuts, because of AI. So it's not just the typical creative space that's experiencing this massive disruption. So you can't really escape it, because everything we do, most of the market, the Western market, what we export is a knowledge-based economy. It's service-based. It's not really, we're not known for exporting raw materials. We're not known for exporting those sort of things. So our economy is not based on that. It's all based on, tech and inventions and compute IP and all these things. It's not. So all of that can be done theoretically by this AI. So what made me think, well, I'm just gonna. So I say what made me, but so when you consider that, then it doesn't seem so silly to then just go and do the animation anyway. But point number two is is AI really as good as they say it is? Is AI really as good as they say it is? Can it really replace all of these jobs? Well, that remains to be seen. Hopefully it doesn't. But I don't think it is. And I have a hunch. I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to predict this. I'm going to predict that AI is going to experience a massive, massive flop when people realize the actual limitations of AI. For two reasons. And this is just what I think, right? This is just what I think. Based upon how Midjourney, when it first came out, when generative AI first came out, and we saw what it could do in producing the images, not necessarily the videos, just the images on, I remember Midjourney, DALL-E, and those sort of platforms. And when you saw it, I remember being blown away. The concept art was wicked. And at the time, they couldn't really represent fingers that well. They had like 6-7 different fingers on one hand. It was disgusting. And there was more uncanny valley sort of looking things, right, that were purporting themselves as people. Not that sort of stuff. I mean, when it got to a stage where they had the fingers right, they had the face was right, everything was just right. And I remember thinking, boy, there were sites just like ArtStation that used to, that still does. But ArtStation was notorious for having portfolios of concept artists, professional artists in the field of concept art, had all their work on their top. Anyway, long story short, you had these people on there thinking they were going to then just prompt up their images, fling it up all on social media, make tons of money. Did it work? No, it didn't. But the images were top quality, so why weren't nobody buying? Why weren't there this rush and craze? Why is there not a rush and craze now to buy this work? You might be scratching your head now thinking, oh, of course no one's going to buy that. But at the time, everybody thought that this was going to disrupt the industry so much, that concept artists were going to find themselves out of a job. But we sit in 2026 and basically that has not happened. So I'm predicting that is going to experience a big old flop. Doesn't mean the technology will go anywhere. It just means that generative AI in particular, as we know it, is going to seriously experience a big old pop, bang, and crackle, right? And we'll see what happens. But don't get discouraged. People still love art, and they love it because of the humanness behind the artistry. You only have to look in the Louvre and ask yourself, why is the Mona Lisa revered still to this day? If that was generated by a computer, do you think people would be paying money to fly down to that Paris museum to see all those paintings? No, you wouldn't. It doesn't mean anything. So don't get discouraged. Continue your craft. Be the artist that you were created and designed to be. Yeah, and go out there and let the world see your talent.